So it's fair to say the iPhone 14 wasn't very well received when it launched back in September 2022, with it being criticized for basically being an iPhone 13s. But now it has come down in price and is available for $699 from Apple themselves, and is available for even less on the used and refurbished market. And so should you now consider this? Well, let's talk about it. Beginning with the design, this feels very similar to newer iPhone models, with the flat sides and the aluminium and glass build. Really, the only thing that feels dated is the slightly thicker bezels and the notch, of course, though this really depends on whether you've interacted with the newer iPhones. If you haven't, you'll be completely fine with how this phone looks, especially compared to something like the iPhone 11 with its chunk bezels. This is a much nicer design, and to be honest, I quickly forgot about the notch. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. By the way, I should mention, much like newer iPhones, this has ceramic shield on the front, which offers excellent shatter resistance, but literally the air can manage to scratch it. And trust me guys, this is coming from someone who was brave enough to use the iPhone 12 caseless, so if you buy any new iPhone, just get a screen protector immediately. I've left a link below to my recommendations. iPhone 14 also comes in some pretty snazzy colors. I've personally tested two colors, which are Midnight, which is basically a fancy way of saying black with a tinge of purple in it, and also this wonderful blue, which reminds me of the Sierra Blue 13 Pro. It's a very nice shade, and it's much better than the blue iPhone 15. The 14 also comes in more saturated colors than the iPhone 15 in general, though I will admit guys, it's very nice having a matte finish on the back of the 15, but considering most are going to use a case anyways, the glossy finish on the 14 is a non-issue. The phone also offers IP68 support, so if you somehow drop this in the toilet, you should be completely fine. Moving to the display, this offers a lot of specs you find on newer models. The only thing this lacks is brightness, because while it's fine indoors, it can struggle outdoors with only 800 nits of brightness. But barring that, this is a great OLED, so colors are vibrant, it has great viewing angles, the contrast ratio is excellent, it's 6.1 inches, which I feel is just right for most consumers, and yeah, really, I have nothing to complain about. This is a very solid display. I know some might be put off by the fact it's 60Hz, but let's be honest, only nerds care about this. As someone who has a 120Hz iPhone, going back to a 60Hz iPhone was a non-issue guys, and because iOS is so fluid, you likely won't be put off by this in my opinion. And let's now talk about performance, because once again, I can't tell much of a difference between this and newer iPhone models. I've had zero issues, it still runs like a champ for most people's needs. A15 is still a very powerful chipset, and also 6 gigs of RAM is plenty fine for multitasking. So yes, even if you were to push this and play some cheeky COD Mobile, you should find the performance plenty good enough, and I really can't remember the last time I found a modern iPhone slow. Now, I am aware one of the disappointments with this phone was the fact it came with last year's chipset instead of the latest at the time, which was the A16 and the 14 Pro, but I'm gonna be honest guys, I don't care about this. I've been using the 14 Pro Max for the last year or so, and I'm not going to pretend to you guys and claim I can notice the additional performance gains the A16 offered, because that's not the case. For regular usage, they're basically the same. These A-series chips have been fine for regular usage since the A12, so yes, don't be pissed off by the 14 because it has an older chipset. If you're also wondering if the 14 Pro is going to get longer support because of the additional performance it offers, I highly doubt that. Remember, both the 6S and the 7 lost support at the same time because the chipset themselves wasn't the bottleneck, it was a lack of RAM on these devices. And so the fact the 14 Pro and the 14 both have 6 gigs of RAM means they should both get 4 to 5 years of support. Cameras here are also pretty solid. The 12 megapixel main can still produce very impressive shots, and while Smart HDR4 can be a little iffy and can overprocess images, every now and then it's still reliable for the most part. What really lets the 14 down are two things. Number one, there's not many zoom options, so I do miss the 2x crop newer iPhones have, but also the ultra-wide is very soft and lacks macro support. But do remember the 15 also shares this con, so to be honest, I can forgive this shortcoming for the most part with the 14 because it's a much cheaper device. Night mode also works excellently on this phone, and 4K cinematic mode is quite a fun feature where of course you can add a blur to the background of videos. Portrait mode also works well as one expects, and action mode was the big upgrade with the 14 camera wise, and it does work well if you want to chase a dog for whatever reason. Photonic engine was also introduced that's supposed to give you additional detail with photos, but I can't lie guys, I can't see much of a difference. It's just marketing jargon. Video is also excellent, and the selfie camera is a big upgrade over older models. With the introduction of autofocus, it makes a big difference. And overall guys, this camera is ever reliable and ever dependable, and I really have no issues. Connectivity wise, you have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.3 support, which are the specs you come to expect with a modern iPhone, and I've had no issues in this department. Face ID has also been super fast on this, much like it is on other iPhones, and the mics and speakers are excellent, and here's a sample for you guys. And here's a quick mic test on the iPhone 14. Let me know how this sounds. Let's now touch on battery life, which is another aspect that's been super reliable with the 14. You can expect 7 to 8 hours of screen on time, which is plenty enough for most to get through a day of usage. Of course, if you're buying used or you're going with a third-party refurbished program, battery health can vary, so make sure to inquire about that before buying the device. But if you're really worried about battery health, make sure to just buy new instead, or wait for the 14s to hit Apple's refurbished store, because those refurbished devices definitely get brand new batteries. Another small thing I want to mention is that this comes with the Lightning port, which I know has become archaic because it's been replaced by Type-C on the 15, but this actually is not necessarily a bad thing. And I know you're probably thinking, how is this ancient port a good thing? Well, I did see some comments in my previous iPhone 15 videos saying that USB-C is not really an upgrade because if you have a plethora of Lightning cables, those all become redundant. And that's a fair point, I can't lie. Yes, techies want to USB-C everything, but regular consumers want to use the same charger they have right now, so of course, that's a big reason to consider the 14 instead. Though of course, like most modern iPhones, you can use MagSafe instead, and I do want to mention this iPhone, much like the 15 series, offers a ton of safety features like emergency SOS, and also crash detection, which I admit can come in handy. Although I can't lie, their marketing around this does kind of blackmail you into buying these phones, because if you don't have these features, you will die apparently. Anyways, that's everything regarding the iPhone 14, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, this review has been very positive, surely it's a good buy, right? Well, not really, because there is a major Achilles heel with this device, and it was the very issue this phone had at launch, and that's the fact it's very, 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 very similar to the iPhone 13, which is usually cheaper. So yes, if you decide to buy from Apple, for example, the 13 is still $100 cheaper, and yes, I admit the 14 has come down in price if you consider the used and refurbished market, but wherever I look guys, the 13 is consistently cheaper, so yes, I would still recommend you buy that instead. There really aren't many big differences between these phones, but hey, like I said, the 14 itself is not a bad device. If you find it for a good price, you won't hate it, to be honest. It's still a very solid iPhone, and I'll leave links to buy this phone in the comments. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.